Blake Snell, Dodgers, $182 million contract. All offseason, we talked about the signings the Dodgers were making, the depth that they were acquiring, the fact that they wanted not just a starting 5, they wanted a starting 10. And the reason they wanted a starting 10 is that they knew that there were going to be injuries. Why? Because they had pitchers who had never been able to be healthy. And while you can dream the dream that health will come or health will stay, at the end of the day, you realize you were simply deluding yourself. Blake Snell woke up and said, I feel some inflammation in my shoulder. The Dodgers did their best Whitesnake imitation and said, here we go again on our own. Blake Snell ends up seeing the doctor in D.C., where the team is playing the Nationals. Coincidentally, the Dodgers were visiting the White House to celebrate their World Series championship from last season. Coincidentally, Blake Snell had some hours off because he wasn't going to the White House because he wasn't on the team. So Blake Snell instead visits the team doctor who is with the team, ostensibly to go to the White House. Somehow there's some visiting privileges, maybe, and I've done this with players before, you go to the room of the doctor or a conference room to do some sort of examination. Look at that photo if you're watching Nothing Personal on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. God, did I love going to the White House. Our president was George W. Bush in 2003 when we went to the White House. We went off season. I think it was November. Could have been December or January. And I've got that same photo and the president's there. It doesn't matter your politics. And there's a lot of confusion about should you go to the White House, should you not? Are there players who didn't want to go to the White House? Would you? I got a different view. I don't necessarily agree with everything that any president says or does. But there's one thing I saw as a child watching champagne celebrations, growing into a young adult and thinking, God, what if I were ever able to do that? You always saw the White House visit, and it never mattered. Republican, Democrat, peace, war, understanding, love. You got to go once you win a World Series. You know that your manager and coaches are going to be at the next year's All-Star game, and you know that you're going to get a ring. You know you're going to get a championship pennant forever in your ballpark, and you know you're going to go to the White House. We went to the White House and got a plane, the whole team, and people brought their kids, and we got photos with then Governor Jeb Bush, President George W. Bush. And I remember he was giving a speech, and we had given talking points to the White House chief press secretary, whoever it was, whoever wrote the speech for him. And President Bush is a baseball guy, which was cool. Remember, he owned the Texas Rangers. You remember that President Bush at one point was maybe going to be the commissioner of baseball. He didn't really have the votes. But in any case, we give talking points about the season, about the comebacks, the fact that we won as a Marlins team 3 games in a row against the Giants, also against the Cubs, and also against the Yankees. And Bush was making jokes. And I remember standing there, and Coca, you'll appreciate this, because very often you're not present. And when you're going through something surreal, you end up forgetting the moment, or it goes by in a blur. And then you're using pictures as your frame of reference going forward. I remember standing behind George W. as he was giving the talk. And I remember taking what Kirsten Dunst did in Elizabethtown, where I took pictures, mental pictures of each of the things that was happening. And I just remember thinking, there's a really high likelihood that I'll never be here again in this situation. But there's also a likelihood that I'm going to spend the next 14 years chasing it. And it all happened to be true. The rule when you go visit the White House, of course, is that you're not allowed to go if you weren't on the team. Blake Snell, as you know, was not on the Dodgers last year. He signed this free agent deal. The Dodgers couldn't have thought he was going to stay healthy. And now he's got this inflammation, and the Dodgers were jumping all over themselves to let you know, don't worry, everything's fine. Dave Roberts, the manager, said, hey, maybe a couple starts. Beyond that, we're good. He had a little soreness. He felt it. When you have that soreness, you're going to miss a start. We'll backdate it. Here's the thing about Blake Snell, and here's the thing about shoulders. In my experience, shoulder soreness and shoulder inflammation scares me more than forearm flexor tendonitis and soreness, more than biceps, triceps, more than elbow. Shoulder, it's worse than all of them. Torn labrum, frayed labrum. When you do your MRIs and when you are doing a physical on a pitcher who you're going to sign, you are way more focused on the shoulder than you are on the elbow, because elbows are such that they can be totally intact and then one pitch later, boom, or you can show terrible fraying in the tendon, and you can actually pitch on that for years. But a decreasing ability to have shoulder movement without shoulder soreness and inflammation in there that requires shots, cortisone, etc., that is a red flag. So while Blake Snell may only miss a start or two, he joins a group of Dodgers who are on the injured list, including Clayton Kershaw. Shohei Ohtani is still not pitching. You know that Evan Phillips, Tony Gonsolin, Gratterall, he's on the IL. These are just pitchers. They've got like $70 million, I bet, worth of players not pitching. The reason why that is so important as we head into bargaining, as we talk about all of the craziness between teams and economic disparity, is that if a team like the team I ran for all those years, if we had that amount of money on the IL, we were done. We didn't have a depth of 10 starters. We had the names of 14 starters going into the year, but about 8 of them, dare I say, 11 of them shouldn't be big league starters for anybody, certainly not for a winning championship competing team. The Dodgers, on the other hand, have all of these starters that any team would take in their top 5. So Snell goes out, you put May in, but guess what happens? You start your process, you win the first couple games. Everyone says you're going to win 162 games. Then you realize you're not going to win that. And then you say to yourself, well, how about 116 games? Maybe we tie the Mariners and we're the best team of all time. And then 2 weeks into the season, you look up and you say, wait a minute, I'm in 3rd place in my own division. The Los Angeles Dodgers are 9-3, 3rd place behind the Padres and the Giants. Do you remember the 1 year, Coca, that the Dodgers did not win their division in the Dave Roberts era, like in the last decade? That's the year they won over 100 games, but that's the year the Giants did also. And they lost the division to the San Francisco Giants. Anyone remember that? So all of the coronation that we've all done on the Dodgers, it's a little premature. But what does that mean from baseball's business standpoint? If the Dodgers don't repeat as champions, if the Dodgers make the playoffs but are eliminated in the first round, or if, heaven forbid, the Dodgers don't even make it to October, do you realize that the whole argument that all these owners have, whether you're Dick Monfort, Bob Castellini of the Reds, Bruce Sherman of the Marlins, no matter who you are, saying, we can't compete with the Dodgers. We need a whole new economic system. We need a salary cap. We need a salary floor because the economic disparity is out of control. The payroll disparity is ridiculous. The commissioner gets to call him up and say, dudes, the Dodgers didn't even make the playoffs.